This is Jennifer Gonzalez welcoming you to episode 199 of the Cult of Pedagogy podcast. In this episode, we'll be looking at how you can offer more personalized instruction to your students through small lessons we're calling seminars. We've talked about a lot of different ways to differentiate and personalize instruction. Methods for giving each student what they need when they need it, rather than planning the exact same learning experiences for everyone every day. The good news is that there are so many different ways to differentiate. And in today's episode, we'll focus on another strategy that we're calling seminars. I say we're calling it that because I assume you're already familiar with the word seminar, a short-term gathering of people for the purpose of learning about a given topic. Typically, adults attend seminars. University students attend seminars. What we're talking about today is offering a version of that concept to students within your own classroom, assuming that is a K through 12 classroom. These seminars are mini lessons given during class time, but the key is that most of the time they are optional. Students only sign up to attend if they have an interest in or need to learn more about the topic. And yes, they could just be called mini lessons. In fact, I heard about this same concept years ago from the high school teachers at the Apollo School in episode 62. But something special is added when you call them seminars. That's what today's guest calls them. Melanie Meehan is a Connecticut-based elementary writing and social studies coordinator who has written 3 books about teaching writing and contributes to the collaborative blog Two Writing Teachers. She appeared on episode 192, where we talked about backward chaining, another differentiation strategy. While working on that piece, she also mentioned the seminar strategy, and I liked it so much that I thought we should give it its own separate space. Today, Meehan is going to talk with me about the logistics of how she sets seminars up in her classroom and what an effective tool they are, not only for differentiation, but also for building student agency. And just like with backward chaining, seminars can be used in any subject area and any grade level. Before we get started, I'd like to thank EverFi for sponsoring this episode. Do you want to prepare your students for career and life success, but you're short on time? Busy teachers use EverFi's standards-aligned, ready-made digital lessons to teach students to thrive in an ever-changing world. Interactive game-based lessons designed by experienced educators help you engage students at all grade levels and bring critical real-world skills like financial readiness, emotional literacy, STEM, and much more to your classroom. Thanks to their partners, all K through 12 schools and students have access to EverFi's lessons free of charge. Join the 60,000 plus teachers who used EverFi's award-winning lessons this past school year to serve over 5.5 million students. With fall semester officially in full swing, now is the perfect time to give your students a jump start on their future. Go to cultofpedagogy.com/everfi, that's EVERFI, and sign up to get a virtual swag bag full of free goodies to get the school year off to a great start. Support also comes from Studio. Today by Studio is a planning tool that allows students to track and plan all of their classwork by estimating how much time a task will take and dividing larger tasks into smaller steps. Teachers can track how each student is handling their workload over time. This is a valuable tool to support parent conversations and help each student plan their work and pace themselves. And coaching students on better organization has a direct impact on their grades as well as their long-term success. Today offers a free plan for individual students and parents to enter their own tasks. With an inexpensive subscription, schoolwork from Google Classroom can be automatically imported. And school and district plans come with added features like timetable import, workload management, and more LMS integrations. Visit studio.co/pedagogy, that's studio.co/pedagogy to create your free account now and get your students planning. Now here's my interview with Melanie Meehan about seminars. Melanie Meehan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jen.
So this is actually the second of 2 podcasts that we're doing because you shared 2 different strategies with me and I love them both and I want to share them with my audience. So the other one was on backward chaining, and today we're going to be talking about seminars. So before we get into that, just tell us a little bit about what you do in education.
Sure. So during the days, like I have different compartments of my professional life and education. My professional job in a town is in Simsbury, Connecticut, and I'm the district's writing and social studies coordinator. So I write curriculum and coach teachers and work in classrooms side by side with kids. And then I also blog at Two Writing Teachers, which is an online platform, totally free. Come and read our posts. I do that with a number of other people. Um, and I started with reviewing book proposals a few years ago and had an editor say to me, when are you going to write a book? So I also have written 3 books about teaching writing.
3 books, yes.
That's me.
So the book that today's strategy is going to come from is called Answers to Your Biggest Questions About Teaching Elementary Writing. So what's the audience and the purpose of that book?
So that's my most recent book, and it's part of a series that Corwin did. So
Mm-hmm.
there's answers to your biggest questions about teaching reading, answers about math, answers about behavior, whatever. I think they're up to 6. Um, but we really distilled out the most critical components of writing instruction that we could think of. And when I say we, before I started writing, I worked with a lot of different people to be like, if you were going to say, what would it be? We've got 5 chapters.
Mm.
Um, and so once we boiled that down, we thought about what are the questions that that people who are new to the profession or who are thinking about honing their practices would want to ask and have answers to. And what has been really nice, it just came out a couple months ago, but it's been really nice to watch both people who are new to the profession read it and integrate some of the ideas into their practice, but also teachers who aren't new read it and be like, I forgot about that. So that has been fun to talk about with people.
So in the book, you introduced this idea of giving seminars as a teacher, and these are seminars that students select themselves. They opt
Yeah.
to take them. And so, tell me about seminars and how they work in the writing classroom, and then we're going to also try to imagine how they could work in any subject area.
It can 100% work in any subject area, but basically seminars are small group instruction. And
Okay.
that is as far as I'm concerned, the sweet spot of differentiation and meeting kids' needs and thinking about what kids really will benefit from in terms of instruction and the work that they're doing. So I think if you think, okay, it's really a fancy word for small
Mm-hmm.
group instruction, I think more importantly, it's a word that kids love, because
Yeah.
I'll introduce it as, my daughters, when they were in college, went to seminars, and those were sort of for when they got really good at something, or it was like the special classes where they got to really work on what they were interested in. So I'll bring them up as seminars in terms of like, what are you really interested in learning about?
Yeah.
And it just generates some excitement and some joy around the whole process. And I think also, when you say they're self-selected, there are a few different things about seminars and small group instruction. I'm going to use the word seminars going forward.
Mm-hmm.
But it, teachers can assign them, right? We can say,
Okay.
like, you need, I'm the teacher and you're going to come to this seminar, my friend.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Um, and but I think in the book Answers to the Biggest Questions, we move you toward more and more student agency, and that's
Okay.
always the goal. Like, ultimately the goal of learning is transfer, and it's owning your learning and being a learner out in the world without a teacher's at your side. So um, I love having kids sign up for their own seminars, and you can make it so manageable because I'll just make a chart on a piece of chart paper that
Mm-hmm.
has a header, what are today's seminars? And I
Mm-hmm.
will take, I forget that I'm not on a camera, but I'll just take the longer sticky notes, like the
Mm-hmm.
ones that are with lines. I think they're 4 by 6,
Okay. Yeah.
and put the titles of the seminars at the top of those sticky notes and ask
Mm-hmm.
kids to sign up underneath them for the day.
Got it. Got it.
So I can just pull that sticky note right off of the chart and be
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, okay, you four needed to work on ways to hook your introductions. Like,
Mm-hmm.
great. Seminars going on about hooking introductions. I've got Jen, Melanie, Garth, and Julia. You four, come on up.
Right.
I'm giving that right now. And I might have told Garth, like, you really need to work on hooking, so make sure you sign up for that one.
Yeah.
And the other three might have signed up on their own.
Got it.
So that's kind of a nice way to bridge that agency gap.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're
Um,
strongly recommending it until they
you
start
can
signing up on
you
their
can
own. Yeah.
strongly recommend a seminar. Although I will say I haven't always agreed with kids' choices,
Mm.
but I can move them along quickly through the
Okay.
choice that they've made and honor that choice. And then they're much more pliable toward my recommendation for the next one.
Can you give an example of a time when that happened?
Yeah, like I had a kid sign up. I, I can't remember what Olivia originally signed up, but I had read her writing and I was like, oh boy, we need to work on fluency and maybe some sentencing.
Okay.
Um, and she had signed up probably, I don't know, it doesn't matter what she signed up for.
Was it a
But
little too advanced? Is that kind of
it
where
was
you're
actually
going
a
with
little
that?
too basic. Like I was
Okay.
like, you had that, but
Got it.
she signed up for something she had. She came to that seminar and sat in it, and she was able to see in her writing she had it. I was able to kind of high five her and then be like, why don't you sign up for this other one next? That might be a really good one for you. And, she was as happy as pie to do it.
Yeah.
Um,
So there's a little
always,
self-assessment that goes on maybe sometimes, which is I feel like that's sort of part of like scaffolding learning anyway. Sometimes if you do it like a tiered assignment and you have students choose a level and they realize, wait, this is way too easy for me, like I need to go a little bit higher. Like sometimes there's that trial and error.
you know what, Jen? Like, that's a huge thing. And I touch on it for sure of like part of my assessment as a teacher is assessing whether you can self assess as a learner.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
And
huge.
it's huge,
Yeah.
right? Like, are
It's part
you
of that
able to
transfer.
recognize what you need as a learner and what you have intact as a learner?
Right.
And, um, that in some ways is bigger learning than how to hook somebody in an introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and even recognizing like uh, well, I was going to get into like what are some of the topics for a couple of examples just within a writing class that you offer, because I think that's also for students to understand that writing can be broken down into all these separate skills, and I might be great at these things and I just need to work on these things instead of it just being like I'm not a good writer, period.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of the seminars, well, I can, for all of the units that we have, I have learning targets that go along with them. So it can be any of
Okay.
the learning targets that align with the standards that the unit's going after. So that could be, developing sections for my writing. It can be making sure that I have enough information in a given section. It can be making sure my reason's clear. Depending on what genre they're working on, those seminars can be content specific, but they can also be writing behavioral, right? They can be, I'm
Mm.
having a hard time getting to work. I'm having a hard time
Mm.
staying on task. I'm having a hard time with spelling or with figuring out where my end punctuation goes. I'm having a hard time knowing what commas I'm supposed to use. So
Yeah.
sometimes I'll put those up too. And it's interesting to watch who will pick out those sessions. It's a lot of the seminars will come from kid watching. Like, what am
Yeah.
I, if I send my kids off to go and start their writing and I watch them, what's getting in their way? What
Yeah.
do I want to teach more than one of them?
Right.
And
Right.
um, I can put that on. I'm gonna just put a little advertisement out for an additional seminar if anybody's interested.
Yeah.
um, so sometimes that's how that will be. But the nice thing about using the sticky notes is it's easy to jot that topic down at the top and keep rotating them that way.
Right.
Um,
I have a logistical question. So
yeah,
this is in a writing class of like, so how long of a class period are we talking about, and how long are the seminars, and what is everyone else doing while you're giving a seminar to
yeah.
a smaller
So
group?
I love that you're asking that. One of the chapters in this book is about instruction and instructional models. So as when I'm envisioning a writing class, I'm envisioning 45 to 60 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm envisioning a 7 to 10 short, we would call a mini lesson. So
Mm-hmm.
a quick, like, here's your learning for the day. You don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily have to do it today because you might be in a different place in your writing process, but probably at some point in this unit, you are going to need this teaching
Mm-hmm.
point. Um, and off you go and you're working on your independent pieces. So
Mm-hmm.
during that independent time, and in my head, there are two 20-minute solid blocks of independent writing time. So
Okay.
you've got your 7 to 10 minute full group lesson that
Mm-hmm.
everybody's listening to.
Mm-hmm.
You've got your 20 minutes of independent writing time, during
Mm-hmm.
which time you have the opportunity to teach kids as small groups or
Okay.
teach kids individually.
Mm-hmm.
I like to challenge the teachers that I work with to think about having in those 20 minutes one small group and one conference at least.
Okay.
So if you can fit those in those 20 minutes, then you're doing a good job being efficient, because after that 20 minutes, you'll do a quick interruption. You might highlight something that you saw great. You might have an additional teaching point. You might ask
Mm-hmm.
somebody to share what they're proud of. That's the 2 3 minute interruption, and which sometimes kids need, right? Like sometimes
Mm.
it's like, just give me the brain break.
Yeah.
I can sustain for this many minutes and I need a break. Great, everybody back to work. You've got another 20 minutes, and teacher, you've got another opportunity for another seminar and another meeting with a kid.
Got it. And so everybody else
Um,
is doing independent work during that time, and then you're
mhm.
just
And
okay.
if you're looking around and you're seeing that there are 4 or 5 kids who aren't, you've got a seminar. Like,
Okay. So that can
hey,
help you figure
friend,
out where the gum and
have
the
I
straw
got a
is. Yeah.
seminar for you? It involves staying on task while I'm talking and working with other kids.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I love
Yeah,
that.
this
Okay.
one's going to be mandated.
Oh, I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so then the seminars are just like a little mini lesson, and then back to work with them.
If
Um,
I'm going longer than 10 minutes, I'm going too long.
okay. Talk to me a little bit about the Google form, because you had sent that to me to show me, and that was another way of determining who might be interested in seminars or what topics are most urgent.
Right. I love the Google form. If anybody out there is listening and they want a copy of it, I'm happy to share it. Just, tweet it
I
out
can
to
put it on the
me.
blog
Yeah,
post. I'm going to have
share
some notes
that.
with this. Yeah.
But basically, what I've created is a Google form that asks kids to share their name, asks kids to share what they feel like they're doing well. That can be in a checklist or it can be in a short answer,
Mhm.
and ask kids what they feel like they need work on. Again, it can be a short answer, it can also be checklists. So
Mhm.
once I have that information of kids checking what they feel like they need to work on, I can establish seminars based on
Right.
that. If I get
Got it.
4 kids who have checked that they need some work on um, including small stories into their argument pieces,
Yeah.
you guys, I've got a seminar going. I've got you four. You all checked that. Basically, they've self-selected it.
Yeah.
It's really a digital representation of the sticky notes. You
Got
could
it.
also do digital representations on with a Jamboard. Like you can create a Jamboard of sticky notes and ask kids to sign up below it too. That's another
Right.
way of doing
Right.
that. But the Google form, they have to be more reflective, and you have that as reflection data, which is a
Yeah.
really nice thing to have.
So there's some stuff in our notes I want to make sure that we get to. One is about student selected seminars versus student run seminars. And at some point, I also just want to ask you a couple questions about, like, let's envision what this could look like in some other subject areas, especially social studies. Sometimes I feel like social studies, we see it as just like facts, 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 facts. And would there be places for seminars in like a social studies class? So why don't we start, since we're already talking about logistics, talk about this idea of a student run seminar. How would you make that work, and what would that look like?
Right. So, I think if you think about student agency as a continuum,
Mm-hmm.
and you can have at the left of the continuum is the buddy, this is what you need. Like, sign up for that seminar, go.
Right. Right.
And, as they move along, what are you working on? Okay, that might be a seminar to sign up for. Oh, you know exactly what you're working on and you've signed up for that seminar.
Right.
And then at the far end, you know that stuff so well. Could you offer a seminar on that? And
Okay.
that's where you can capitalize. I think that we run past the power of the abilities of some of the kids in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And um, kids kids are sometimes really effective teachers to each other. So, one thing I'm noticing, like, you've used transition words brilliantly in your piece. Could you run a seminar on that for your friends?
Such a great
Um,
opportunity. Yeah.
yeah, so you can also have them sign up that way, and that's a nice thing to do. So, um, a kid might have a specialty or a strength that they want to develop. And that also forces them to kind of prepare for it and make sure that they're extra good. So,
Right. They have to really know their material then if they're going to
hmm
teach it.
yeah, let me make sure that my writing's really clear and that I really have those transition words loud and proud in that piece. So,
Yeah.
it's a nice way to push, like, really emphatically mastery for them
Yeah.
and to get to other kids. So,
Right. So let's take it away from a writing situation now, and let's look at other subject areas. And I brought up social studies. So what would be an example of some seminar topics in a social studies class?
if I were doing it as a social studies class, I would change it up a little bit, and
Hmm.
it might not be a seminar as much as a work group. Um,
Okay.
and I think that sometimes, like, I'm guilty of this. Sometimes my small group instruction is more one and done than it needs to be, or it also is more
Mm,
teaching oriented than it needs to be. Whereas
okay.
it can be a goal group, or it can also be a project group or a research group or a study group. So if
Hmm.
you have four kids who are going to become specialists on a topic,
Hmm.
then they can really get together and they can work on that together. So, I have a class next to me that I've been listening, and they keep checking in and showing me their work, who are working on there's four of them who are working on colonial kids games, and they're
Mm,
doing a lot of research around that, and they're working on creating a presentation about it and inventing some different games that kids who lived during the colonial period might have played and done. And so it's more of a work group than a seminar, I would say.
hmm. Hmm. Okay.
But super effective, and also really honing in on the capital of kids and the power of inquiry and exploration, and letting them go and ask the questions and go figure things out.
Yeah. I'm wondering too, like if there's I'm thinking if you sort of look at a 9-week, course of study in a history class, for example, there might be some piece of it where you breezed past it and you could have a seminar just on that topic for either somebody who's very interested in learning more about it, or for kids who say, when we did that, I just didn't get it at all. And I could use a review on that topic or that particular incident or whatever it is. And so I could see maybe doing special seminars on topics,
You
to
could
do a
totally
deeper
do
dive,
that.
or
You
yeah.
could ask kids to run that. Like you could ask
Yeah.
kids to become the experts in certain parts of history and topics within a social studies unit. And they could then create a seminar that they would give. And that would be a
Yeah.
really cool thing to, take informed action or,
Right, right.
um,
Yeah.
but they would understand if you were doing it in other content areas, if you were
Mhm.
doing seminars in reading or writing or math or whatever, and they were understanding what a seminar is, they would have that knowledge and understanding in order to be giving it for social
Mhm.
studies. And I think it would really add to the power.
Yeah. Now I'm thinking too about like ed camps and that sort of things where we have teachers that
Like I
that
can
can choose, this sort of boutique style PD. I can see even offering that on a school wide level for certain days where there's seminars that are offered to anybody in the building that wants to learn about, this thing or that thing. And
make it a whole learning community,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
tap into the power of the curiosity of the community. Yeah, for sure.
It's nice because it's a short period of time. It's low commitment. It's not something you're getting a grade on. And so that takes away a lot of the drudgery and the pressure from what is essentially still just academic learning.
I also think, Jen, there's power in having it be 10 minutes, both for kids
Yeah.
and for adults.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think sometimes when kids are doing some of their genius hour presentations or their invention conventions or whatever,
Mhm.
they get going and it becomes longer than the average attention span. I really like the idea of saying to them, you have to do this presentation in 7 to 10 minutes. That's all you got.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
um, there's there's so much importance and power in being concise and
Yeah.
deciding what your big points are going to be and sticking with them.
Yeah. Anything else you think teachers need to know about seminars before we wrap up?
I think channeling what I just said is keep it concise. Like
Yeah.
it is a teaching point. You're not trying to fix an entire piece.
Right.
You're teaching one thing. One of the things that happens frequently with small group instruction, which is what seminars are, is that you end up having 4 conferences going. Like it ends up
Mm.
being I'm going to teach you this kid A, you this kid B, you kid, and you kind of are going all around with all 4 of them, and you're not
Mhm.
teaching all 4 of them the same thing in a cohesive way.
Mm.
So I would just say guard against that. Like,
Mhm.
it's not pulling 4 kids up and trying to teach their different needs. It's pulling 4 kids up with the same teaching need or the same instructional interest and sticking with that.
Yeah. That actually makes me wanna ask too, I mean, what if you have 17 kids sign up for a seminar? Like, do you just have to have a cutoff point and say, "We'll have to just do it again"?
I'll run 2 or 3.
Okay.
So
It's
I
important to
will,
keep the group small.
and sometimes, yeah, like I'll keep it 4
Okay.
to 6.
Okay.
Um, Sometimes I will ask a kid, um, and this is how I'll differentiate sometimes when I know the kids well,
Mm.
to listen like he's going to teach it. So as I'm teaching it, I want you to learn and participate as somebody who's going to turn this around and become the teacher. So
Mhm.
I almost play telephone with them, right?
Mm,
I'll
mhm.
be like, Jen, you're going to be the one who listens and then turns it around because we've got so many other kids who need it. So you're going to become my teaching partner. And at the end of this, you're going to go off and teach it to another group and I'll teach it to the other group.
Mm. Okay.
Um, so it kind of, or if I have somebody who I know is bright but doesn't always pay attention a lot, that's an effective little thing to do when there's little management 202 there, like
Cool.
when there's a lot of kids who are signing up, and I'm like, oh, I think that the other thing is that when you have the whole class signing up, or almost the whole class signing up for the same seminar, then it's not really a small group instruction that it needs to happen. I do it as a teaching point the next day for whole group instruction.
Right. That's a really good just assessment that everybody needs this. Let's just all do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I wasn't expecting this one to be such a hit. So since it was such a hit, we're going to make this be the focus of tomorrow's whole group instruction lesson.
That makes sense. Thank you so much. The amount of ideas you have, I really think that if people are listening and they like what you've said, they should go and get your book, because I'm guessing it's packed full of all kinds of ideas that they can use.
I hope it is. I'd like to believe that.
So remind us again, where can people go to find you online?
Right. So the probably the most global place to find all of my places where I am is at melaniemeehan.com.
Okay.
But you can also find me on Twitter. If you follow me, I'll follow you. And you can send me a request for something I mentioned, and I'm happy to send it your way. So I'm there at Melanie Meehan 1.
Okay.
And then also you can find me at 2 Writing Teachers. But I share that website with many other people. So
it's a lot more than 2, isn't it?
It is. It's not just 2.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I really appreciate so much for having me. I appreciate all the work you do, Jen.
Oh, thank you. For links to all the resources mentioned in this episode, visit cultofpedagogy.com, click podcast, and choose episode 199. To get a bi-monthly email from me about my newest blog posts, podcast episodes, courses, and products, sign up for my mailing list at cultofpedagogy.com/subscribe. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great day.